Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Pagan's Witchy Corner. My name is Pagan, and today I am joined by Miss Kayla again, and we love her. Miss Kayla, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Always. So, today we're not actually talking about something that actually has to do with the tempering path. We're actually doing what we call temple teachings, and these temple teachings are kind of a way to bring topics that don't really fit inside of lessons, but they're important conversations that still need to be had. And we thought that probably going forward, one of the best things to actually talk about starting out would be the process of gatekeeping, guardianship, and stewardship. And basically, what's the difference between those? And everyone's like, oh, gatekeeping, big buzzword. Yes, big buzzword. We're going to talk about it. Don't panic. Everybody, don't panic. Just grab whatever you need to not panic. We're not talking about anything terrible. We're talking
Get a
about
squishmallow if you
a
need it.
squishmallow if you need it, cup of coffee, whatever works, a dog, cat. Um, it's a term that has so much toxicity around it, but there is also some necessary avenues that still need to be associated with it. And so we're going to talk all about that. But yes, for those of you who have been longtime listeners on this show, I have always talked about practice your way. Yes, but there is still caveats to that. You need to make sure that you're practicing within safe avenues. You're making sure that you're practicing within culturally appropriate avenues, and that you are also practicing within avenues that you have the basic understanding of where you are going with that. And that's where that guardianship comes into play. So, what is gatekeeping for those of you who may not know? And why is it so terrible? Gatekeeping is that word that nobody likes in the witchcraft community because everyone's just like, oh, why are you being a gatekeeper? But the problem with that is gatekeeping should not be what it is, but it has become this thing where it's surrounded by elitism and ego and exclusion. And it sometimes can bring up terrible wounds of, trauma within other communities. And so we need to talk about what gatekeeping really truly is and why it's important and how it can be harmful in all of the avenues that it is and how it differs from guardianship and stewardship because those are not the same thing, but they are the same thing. I know I'm getting confusing. Stick with me, I promise. It's one of those things that it's like circling back, and it's that whole Spider-Man meme where they're all pointing at each other trying to figure out who's who. It's the same kind of thing in that moment. But it's something that we definitely need to be having conversations about because especially on the internet, everyone's like, "Oh, if you don't like my practice, you're gatekeeping me." Not necessarily. And I think that we are very quick to throw around the word gatekeep instead of actually listening to what the other person is saying and what they're experiencing. And understanding that not necessarily the word no, not yet, or even slow down is bad. It necessarily might just be one of those things where somebody is trying to look out for you. But we have been taught so much in the witchcraft community that it's like if somebody tells you no, don't do that, or hey, you need to be careful with that, they are trying to stop you from doing what you're doing. And that's where it gets toxic. And yes, there are people out there that will absolutely try to keep you from moving forward because of ego and because they want that entitlement and they want to do that. But there's also an avenue of gatekeeping that is guardianship. And that sometimes comes from appropriated cultures where those cultures are saying, hey, this is ours. Please don't touch unless you are part of that culture. And that's totally different, but it still falls under it. So, what do we do about gatekeeping? How do we keep it from going harmful? And how is it different from all the other avenues? So, Kayla, what are your thoughts on gatekeeping? Because everybody's got an opinion on it.
So, everybody does have an opinion, even if it's just, oh, that's a BuzzFeed word and a buzzword in general, and I don't like the word. Even if that's your opinion on it, that's an opinion. Um, my thoughts on it are none of this is simple. None of this is supposed to be simple. Um, we're in a place where, yes, some people do gatekeep in a harmful way, but guardianship comes with a air of gatekeeping, and it's not meant to be gatekeep. It's not meant in a gatekeeping way, and there's a big difference there. Guardianship looks different than gatekeeping, and that's where I come from it as. Not all gates are bad.
Yes.
Not all gates look bad, and not all gates are meant bad. Some gates are an act of protection for you. Some gates are an act of care for you and for them, for yourself, for myself, for whoever is holding that gate. Sometimes it's an act of protection on their part. So you've got to really think about, why is that gate there? Why does that gate stand? And that's where I come at gatekeeping from.
Yes, I agree with that because when we hear gatekeeping, a lot of the times we're like, oh, you're just trying to keep me from this. I'm not allowed to practice this. And it's like, hold up. No, no. That may be true. Yes. Or you can't call yourself a witch. You can't do any of these things. And they basically go on these power trips. And we see it all over social media. Social media is, you know, the best thing and the worst thing all at the same time as we're sitting here on a podcast talking basically through social media. But a lot of times when that harmful gatekeeping comes into play, there's, like I was saying before, there's ego, there's fear, there's control, insecurity. It can also come from trauma, classism, racism, or even ableism. A lot of times, like for example, in the Norse community, you do run into some gatekeepers, and those gatekeepers are doing some harmful stuff. We call them the ones who basically lean into fascism and racism and the whole avenue of you have to be white to be Norse. And no, that's not true at all. And it's terrible. It's an awful thing. And it limits so much of the actual thing because they think that there should only be one true race that can actually practice Norse mythology or Norse paganism. And that's not true.
Mhm.
It's for everyone. It's always been for everyone. It is actually an open tradition. And if anyone tells you otherwise, they're probably not a great person. So, not a good idea. But those are the ones who want to hoard power. They want to make sure that it fits within what they want, not what the path actually is. And so the difference that I have is when it comes to guardianship, it's a threshold that has healthy boundaries. And the healthy boundaries aren't there to say, no, you can't cross this. It's kind of like having that, grandmother or that, wise aunt that's sitting there just going, okay, did you pack your lunch? Do you got a coat? Are you good? Okay, now you can go hike up the mountain. That's the difference. It's not saying, no, you can't. It's saying, are you prepared for this? Because what lays ahead might actually be tougher than you think. And having that foundation is what prepares you for going forward. So if you have somebody like us who we teach and we say, hey, hold on, go back and reread this, or go back and check this lesson again, or hey, can we schedule a one-on-one with you? It's not because you're in trouble. It's not because you did anything wrong. It's
Right,
because what we are
right.
seeing is something that's different, something that is not necessarily bad, but there is a lack of comprehension between what we have said or taught or written and what you are getting out of it. And we want to make sure everybody's on the same page before you step forward. It's not us saying, no, you can't go forward. By all means, we want you to go forward. We absolutely want you to get to the
Yeah,
end of the path. It's more
we
of
want you to run.
we want you to run, yes. Not from the path, on the path. But we also want to make sure you're not going to trip and stumble because
Yeah,
everything going forward, the foundations of witchcraft are always built on each other. And it continues that you start with one thing, you move to the next, you continue with the next, and so on. So that way you have the foundation of what to do next when you get into complex spell work or complex ritual or complex communication with spirit, deity, or whatever.
Or complex ideas.
That too.
Just ideas can be complex.
Yes.
So, it's one of those things where we're going, "Hey, wait, there's a hole in the road ahead of you. We want you to make sure that you're okay to take your next step because there's a hole in front of you.
Yes.
Don't run in that hole. Step over to the left a little bit, step over to the right a little bit, you know? Don't go straight forward in the way you're going." It's just that's as simple as it is we don't want you to trip over a stick, we don't want you to fall in a hole. That's all it is.
Hmm. It's let me help you before you take the next step. Let me make sure that you have what you need going forward. And that's what makes it so much easier when you're able to do those types of things, because then you can say, oh, I do know what this looks like. I do understand, hey, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I comprehend this and I have the foundation for this. So that way you're not going, wait, that was in chapter 5. I didn't read chapter 5. And we have a test on chapter 10. Like, that's kind of how it feels when you skip something that's very basic. And sometimes, especially when we, if you've been practicing for a minute or you've not really refreshed your basics and stuff like that, you're just like, oh, I don't need to refresh my basics. I don't need to look at that again. You know, I already learned it once. It's fine. And then you're like, wait, what does that herb do again? Wait, do I need this for that spell? Or hold up, I'm encountering something here and I'm not exactly sure how to get rid of it. It's been a minute. I haven't had to deal with this for a while. There's nothing wrong with that. Those things happen all the time. Trust me, I've been doing this for like 25 years, and there are times where I'm like, hold up, I remember this, but I have to go check the books because I don't remember the exact phrasing that I need. Otherwise, I'm going to totally screw this up. It's not that I'm going to,
Yeah.
be wrong in what I'm doing or wrong in what I'm saying. It's making sure that I still have the foundations for it. And so sometimes when you're practicing, you even have some guardianships with yourself like that, where you have to say, wait, I can't take the next step forward because I don't remember if I know this road very well. And that's the moment of going, I need to check the book. I need to check my notes. I need to check my grimoire. I need to check whatever. I need to check my own energy to make sure that I am prepared for what's next, because this is not going through my brain correctly, or the energy feels off. And that comes with some discernment along those lines. So, some good examples of, guardianship are like understanding the differences between names. Sorry for the listeners. If you just heard a really loud screeching sound in the background, that was my dog. He's a part beagle, so he's very opinionated. And yeah, it was extremely loud through my ears. So I'm like, I don't know if it got picked up. If it did, that was Spencer saying hello. So um,
Hi, Spencer.
but going back to where we were, sometimes we end up using the wrong terminology, the wrong names, and it's not so much that we were wrong when we learned it. We were just either things have changed or cultures have said, "Hey, that's not the right terminology. That's ours. Could you please not?" And then you're like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry. My bad. Let me find a different word." And you have to learn that.
Mhm.
And that's not shame. That's a moment to learn and to grow and to appreciate that somebody else has taught you that that terminology can be replaced with something else. And other
Yes.
times it's you make you may encounter coming across somebody who has taught you some really bad information or seems very predatory or says, "Hey, let me fix your energy for you," or "You're going to come work with me." And you're like, "Whoa, bro, I don't even know you." Like, who are you? Why am I doing this? And sometimes if you're new, you get really excited because they know so much and they seem so amazing and they seem so great. And then you're just like, "Wait, wait, wait, hold up. I don't know you from Adam. So can we just like not do that? That would be great." And sometimes when you're new, it's so exciting that you don't realize that you're actually in trouble in those moments. And having somebody who is a guardian of the path, or a guardian, or a teacher, or somebody who is more versed in the path can go, hold up, whoa, whoa. You don't get to do that with them. No, no. Stay in your lane,
Yes.
crazy dude. Please. And that's not gatekeeping you from practicing what that person was practicing, but that person might have actually wanted to take advantage of you. And sometimes you would need basically that nice auntie that's like, hold up, we're not doing that. And they don't gatekeep you from it. They just show you a new path to say, this is a safer option, that you're not going to get scammed or have something terrible happen to you or be
They're there
traumatized.
they're there to say, "Hey, don't take candy from the stranger.
Yeah, literally. Even if the
Don't
stranger
do
has
that."
puppies, don't do it.
Yeah, we don't do that.
So it's,
That's what their aunties are for. That's what they're there for.
yes, exactly. That they're there to help you and go, wait a second, let's just take a breath and look at this from a different angle. They're the ones who probably have also gotten scammed in the past and are like, no, no, I know what this looks like. Don't go there. Trust me, it does happen. You get sucked into people who sound really great, and then you're like, whoa, how did I end up here? And yeah, don't do that. Um, Another sign of good guardianship that we really love to talk about is, obviously, that we've kind of talked about, is holding off on advanced work until you really understand your basics. And
Yeah,
I've talked on the podcast quite a bit about making sure your basics are solid foundation. We've had a lot of authors who come in here and talk about their books, and their books are for beginners. And I have probably read like 300 beginner books, maybe more. I don't know. I don't count anymore because it's kind of pointless, but they all have a very similar tone. They all pretty much say the same thing because the basics are pretty much universal. And that's because they're the basics, they're the foundation. And so before you decide, oh, hey, I'm going to go channel a deity, you might want to know a little bit about channeling, maybe a little bit about protection,
yes.
maybe a little bit about boundaries, and a little bit about your own energy. So that way you don't say, oh, hey, I'm talking to Loki, and that is so not even Loki that you're talking to.
No,
It helps you discern that and make sure that you are being safe. And so it's making sure that you understand also your path, that you're not out here just willy-nilly going all about it and just being like, yeah, I'm going to just go over here and practice like advanced hoodoo or something like that. And you've never even like taken the appropriate steps to learn about it. You've never taken the steps to understand the culture behind it or any of those things, which then can kind of put you in some hot water, which is not safe. And so that's the whole
no.
point of guardianship. It's there to help you make sure that you are doing the right thing. And yes, for those who are like, oh, but wait, I want to actually just run and do all the things. Great. Yes, go
Make
do
sure
the
you're not
things.
running with scissors.
Just don't run with the scissors. So, the tension between gate guardianship and gatekeeping. It's really hard to tell when you're doing one and the other one is actually what's taking place. So it's like, are you gatekeeping? Are you guarding? And the two walk a very fine line, like a silk thread
Yes, they
line.
do.
They can be very, very close, but it intends really on the intentions behind it. So one can feel like you're being held back. Well, actually, both can make you feel like you're being held back, but one is there to actually help you, the other's to hinder you. And so comprehending
Mhm.
and asking questions and saying, okay, why is it that I can't move forward? Explain it to me. And there's nothing wrong with that. A true person who is being a guardian will explain to you why. They will
Yeah,
make sure that you are on the same page. They will explain to you, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Are you okay with what's going forward? Do you comprehend this? If you do, go forth, run up the path, have a good time. We'll see you at the next point. No worries. And somebody who's gatekeeping is going to be like, because you're not ready. You're not powerful enough for that. You're not good enough for that. I'm the only one
yes.
who can teach you that. And I don't think you're ready.
They're gonna have excuses.
Yes. As somebody who was once in a group that had that exact same thing happen to me, I was actually told by a previous practitioner that I was in a group with that I couldn't work with the Morgan because I wasn't powerful enough. I wasn't ready enough. She was going to eat me alive. And it caused some kind of trauma around her for a while. And then when she actually did start coming around and she did start kind of poking, she was exceptionally patient with the trauma that had been caused and waited until I was ready, until I was, understanding. And then I was able to also talk with other practitioners of her and be like, is this normal? Is this something that happens? Is she going to eat me alive? Like, is this what's going to actually happen here? And most of them were like, she's tough. She's a little brutal sometimes, but no, she's not going to eat you alive. She's actually going to help you grow if that's
Yeah.
what you want. But she's always going to listen to you. She's not going to just be like, oh, hey, I say this and this is how this is going to happen. You have
Yeah.
autonomy to say no.
Yeah,
And
you totally do.
that was something I wasn't taught by that previous practitioner. I was taught, no, you can't do this. That's gatekeeping. The other one was guardianship, of saying, you still have autonomy. You still have the ability to say, no, I'm not ready, not yet. Hold on. I still need to learn. I have to fact check. I have to do all the stuff I need to do to feel comfortable in this situation. And the Morgan also was the guardian there as well. She was the one that's saying, okay, let's wait. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to teach you. This is what I'm offering. Are you ready for that? If not, I'll wait. That's a guardian versus gatekeeping. Perfect example. So when we hear this in modern witchcraft, that's like everyone is allowed to practice what you practice. Absolutely. As long as, like we were saying before, it's within cultural appropriation, appropriate circles, and that you feel like you are capable of doing that thing. And that's okay if you're like, hey, I feel like I'm ready for this. And then you go and read about it and learn about it, and you're like, whoa, hold up, maybe not. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean that you're, dumb, or you didn't comprehend it, or that you move too fast, or that you are broken, or any of those things. Society and a lot of people in the community will try to tell you stuff like that. And that's not true. Not remotely.
No.
There's no
No.
shame in saying, I need a minute. There's no shame in saying, I don't get it. There's no shame in saying, okay, let's take some time with this. Or there's no shame in saying, I'm not ready. And taking the time to learn is so much more valuable because you actually do get so much out of it. And as somebody who is like an absolute nerd about learning things, especially in witchcraft, like it's one of my hyper focuses, hence why I'm here doing a podcast and why I became a, teacher eventually after 25 years. And the funny thing is, okay, we're going to talk about that for a second. I know I'm all over the place. And Kayla's just like, okay, I'll find it in the
I'm
notes.
just
It's
letting
fine.
you go.
She's just letting me go. This is how we work. When I was called by deity to be a teacher, I laughed really hard at my deities, maybe a little slightly disrespectfully, because I was like, that's funny. You're nuts. No thanks. I'm good. I don't want to do it. And especially when it came to taking on the priestess role, I'm like, I'm not ready for that. I'm not prepared for that. I don't know how to do that. There are way better people out there that are prepared for that than me. And they were persistent, especially the Morgan. The Morgan
Yeah.
is so persistent and also so patient. And she waited and she waited and she waited. And eventually she's like, are you ready now? It's been a while. It's been like 5 years. Come on now, girl. Let's get on it. And eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, but I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I really don't. I
Mhm.
don't know how to do any of this. And she's like, it's okay. I will introduce you to people, which she did, that helped. She will put people in my path and brought people into my life that were like, hey, this is how this works. This is what this looks like. This is how you teach. This is how you be in service to a community. And I'm like, wow, okay. And then the more I realized, I was like, oh, maybe I am actually ready for this. And it's not so much an elitist thing. Trust me, I still don't feel like I am a teacher, quote unquote. Even though I know my stuff to teach, I feel like I am just a student that is in a higher level class than some people. I'm still learning alongside everybody. I'm basically trying to get my master's degree while everybody else is getting their bachelor's. And that's fine. That's great because I still get to learn alongside everybody and it makes me excited. And I love that about the path. And being able to be like, oh, hey, I know what you're working on. Do you need help with that? I can explain it to you in this way if you'd like me to. If not, and you want to just read it on your own, that's perfectly fine too. If you have questions, you know where to find me. And that was one of the things that I loved about when I started realizing, oh, this is teaching. And that was something that was like really exciting for me. And wanted really hard to make sure that I wasn't following that gatekeeping path, to making sure that I also wasn't protecting the younger witches from being like, oh, hey, I'm going to go over here and hang out with the tricksters and be like, oh, wait, come back.
Oh, don't do
Hold
that.
on. Sit down. Let's have a
Don't hang out with
conversation.
the tricksters.
Let's not do that just yet. Not saying you can't. I'm just saying, hold up. Let's have a conversation before you do that. And so that was one of those things that I saw a lot of students who were coming in, especially from the podcast, and a lot of you are probably listening to this episode. So hi, welcome. I love you guys. You guys are great.
Hi.
Um, but they were the ones that were like, hey, I have questions about this. And I'm like, oh, hold up. I got to go figure out how to answer this. And then I got to
Yeah.
do more research, which then, of course, circles back to I nerded out. It was fun. It was exciting. So getting to learn and getting to grow and getting to help people, but also understanding that I had moments where I had to guard my own path because I didn't have the answers to teach somebody else yet. And when I had to go research it and I had to learn it for myself again, or for the first time, I was able to say, okay, now we can talk about it. And it wasn't somebody, it wasn't me trying to be like, oh, no, you can't move forward or you can't do this or you can't practice that. You want to practice what you want to practice. That's fine. But here's the thing. The only time I will say no is if it is something that is not appropriate.
Right.
Like if you are somebody that's like, oh, I want to go practice like voodoo or any of those things, and you are not initiated or a part of that culture, I'm going to be like, you can't.
No.
Sorry. That's off
No.
limits. And that's just because the people of those cultures say no. Not me, them.
Mhm.
We're just here to
Mhm.
say they said no. So you can't. But you
And
can
yeah,
practice
it's not
other
an us
things.
saying no. It's not an us saying no. It's a this culture has said no.
Yes, absolutely. And so understanding that is a huge avenue of guarding the path as well. Now, the interesting thing is, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you can't be on this path because I said so, or you can't be on this path because you're not cool enough, or you're not the right gender. You'd be surprised how often that one actually happens. And yes, there are groups out there that will be like, I want an all female group or I want an all male group, and that's fine. Those groups might have trauma and might not feel comfortable with the opposite sex. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are being judgmental or cruel about it, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yes.
So you can't do those kinds of things. So I've shared my story. I'm going to kind of shut up now and let Kayla talk for a bit because I'm sure I went off on a
Where
tangent.
do
Kayla's just like, I'm skipping along beside you. It's fine. That's what she does
where do
often.
I even go from
I
there?
know, I just talked you in a circle because that's what I
Yeah.
do. I guess, have you ever had a moment where you felt like you were gatekept or
Um,
gatekept?
honestly, I haven't really. Um, I haven't really had moments where people have told me no. Um, not in the witchcraft community. Not not in the witchcraft community I have.
Mhm.
Um, I have in other communities, but not in the witchcraft community, surprisingly. Um, Thankfully, actually. But so far, cross your fingers, knock on wood, do all the superstitious things you want to do. I haven't had any gatekeeping moments, and especially not in the tempering path. We've made it to where it is not gatekeepy. It is not one of those kinds of places. It is very much rooted in guardianship. And I'm thankful that we made it that way, and thankful that we had that in the back of our minds as we were putting it together and putting it into place. And I'm thankful we had it in the back of our minds while we were putting together the priestess path and the torchbearers and all of the support structures for where we're going, which we'll talk about in a little while. Um, but yeah, I haven't really been gate kept.
I mean, that's probably a good thing. I know that when you started, though, you really kind of started with a lot of groups that were very much on the side of guardianship. Um, and
I
me
did.
being in the
I
path
did.
much longer, and that's not like a flex or anything. That's just, I'm
No.
old. And so,
Hey, I'm older, but you've been
yes.
in witchcraft longer than I have.
Yes, but when I was in the path, it was I found great people who were, part of some paths, and I found other people who were not. And I came also through the early 2000s, late 90s, and all of the things that happened during that time period with the witchcraft community that was not great. We had the satanic panic that was also happening still. We also had a lot of cultural appropriation, like so much. It's kind of
Yeah, yeah.
astounding.
And I was very much in the broom closet and um in the ghost world more so than witchcraft world. I was still intrigued and learning about witchcraft in those days, but I wasn't full blown, this is my path. I was
Mhm.
still learning about it, but I wasn't saying this is my path in those days.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm kind of glad that you actually don't have a gatekeeping story, which is great because when you don't have a gatekeeping moment, it's kind of awesome because you get the moment where you're like, I've only ever experienced the good side of this. And experiencing the bad can, in those moments, can also be a little bit harder to realize what's bad and what's not. But it also is really great because you just get the opportunity to learn and to grow and to do all of those things. And it's really nice because then you have that moment of going, okay, how do I take my next step forward? What is my next step
Yeah,
forward? And
yeah,
you don't get hindered by anything. I mean, you might have people or in the community that might tell you, hold up, slow down, not yet, wait just a minute. And it's not so much that, again, we're not saying they're not stopping you. It's more of, do you have your basics down? Are you grounded? Are you making sure you're accountable? Are you understanding it, are you coming at this from a point of humility or entitlement that you are owed this when you're doing, the next steps or learning the next parts of the craft? And, being like, do I understand what is going to be part of it, or am I just looking for the next shiny dopamine fix? And
right.
we want to make sure that we're not following just the dopamine shiny things because sometimes the dopamine shiny things are on the other side of a cliff and we don't realize there's a cliff there. So
Yeah,
we always are like, wait, let's, use our discernment and understand where it's coming from. So, you know, I think having those moments and understanding that guarding the path isn't a it's not an ego trip, and it should never be about ego. It should be about love. It should be an act of, care and consideration for the person who is also on that path with you,
Yeah.
that you are helping and, holding the lantern for so that they don't trip and fall. You are not doing it
Yeah.
because you want them to trip. That's the difference between gatekeepers. Gatekeepers are like, oh, you can't just venture the path, but it's like, oh, they also want you to trip and fall on your own 2 feet.
Right, right.
And it can be
And
exceptionally
somebody else
toxic.
somebody that's gatekeeping is gonna say, "No, let me light up the ground for you so you can see where you're going." They're gonna say, "Hang on, wait, so that I can get a light over there." They're not telling you to wait just willy-nilly. They're saying, "Wait, so that I can give you a light."
Yeah,
And there's a big difference.
that's what somebody who's not gatekeeping would absolutely do. They're going to make sure that you are able to see the path clearly before you take your next steps. So, who does the guarding of the guardianship of the path? What kind of roles do you have to be in that? Do you have to be a priestess? Do you have to be somebody who's a mentor? Do you have to be, well advanced on your path? And the answer is you need to have at least enough knowledge to understand what the other person is trying to achieve. So that way you can at least give insight. But that doesn't mean you necessarily have to be a teacher, but you should also make sure that you're not coming at it from a place of ego. And so we call those who are not necessarily full teachers, but the ones who have enough insight to light the path, and explain, hey, what's up around the corner here. Those are the ones that we call torchbearers in our temple. And they're not exactly, you know, the ones who would gatekeep. They're not the ones who would um hold the line for you and teach you. They're the ones that would just be like, "Wait, I think you've got that confused. Let's go ahead and take this step over here, examine it and make sure everything's good." And then they walk with you and light your path just a little bit. They're the ones that,
Mhm.
support you and give a different approach. They give you their experiences and explain, this was my experience. It may not be yours, but this might help you on your path. Those are torchbearers.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you have obviously teachers who would be not full in priestess thing, in priestess or priest mode or priestess. They are the ones who have the knowledge but haven't taken on a formal titled role and are the ones who help teach, basically show you the map of the path. And then you would have the priest, priestess, or priestess, depending on whichever terminology you feel comfortable using. And for those of you who are like, what is a priestess? That's somebody who's basically non binary. That's the terminology for somebody who's like non binary or uses they, them
right.
pronouns. That's the terminology you would use for that. Somebody who's, she, her, you use priestess, he, him, priest, etc. But the priest and the priestess, and the priestess, those roles are the ones who have been called into service either by deity, um, usually by deity, because you're usually a priestess or a priestess or whoever. We're gonna use priestess in this moment because Kayla and I are both priestesses, of a
Yeah.
specific deity or deities. And those roles should never just be taken lightly. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and be like, "Oh, I'm going to be a priestess." It's
No,
a
doesn't happen
conversation.
that way.
Yeah. No. I mean, you might get called. You might wake up and get called by your deity that morning and be like, "Hey, like I'm offering you the job. Are you willing to take it?" And sometimes it's a very simple yes, but it shouldn't be a simple yes because it should be a conversation that takes place over a long time to make sure you are A, communicating with the appropriate source, because yes, there are tricksters who will impersonate deity. Make sure you're using
Yes,
your discernment in those moments. But they're also the ones who take the time to explain what they would like you to do within that role. What does it look like
yes,
to serve your community? Are you a solitary who is a priestess? Or are you somebody who works within a group? Are you planning on teaching? What does this look like for you? And what did they expect out of it? And so that's a long conversation. That is not something that happens in a short time. Um, like I said, when the Morgans started calling me, it was 5 years. before I ever said yes. And part of that was a huge part of my own hesitation of saying, I'm not ready. I don't feel comfortable with this. And eventually, I was not only asked by her, but I was also asked by, our coven, who has now basically become the temple, um, and teaches and torturers and so on within it. But that was one of those things in that moment where when she called me, I was like, I don't feel like I can do the job. I don't feel like you've got the right lady here. And she's like, no, I do. And you should be, this is what I want you to do out of it. This is what I'm expecting. And it's okay if you don't know everything straight out the gate. We're going to
Yeah.
completely teach you along the way. It's just, it's time
Yeah.
for you to take up the mantle of doing this job. And our job, honestly, is to make sure nobody really gets left behind, but also making sure that we are preserving what's next for the next generation without it becoming watered down or TikTok nonsense, which does happen way more than we
Yes.
would like. And so we make sure that those who do step onto the path have the knowledge and the expertise so that way when they do step off of it or continue past the basics, they have all of the necessary information that they need to do whatever they want, practice wherever they go, and follow their personal path wherever it will take them. And hopefully, in the process, also help them understand themselves better. A lot of times people think, oh, witchcraft is just, tarot and spells and, candles and talking to different deities and stuff, which it is,
And
but
part of that it is.
it's also knowing you and making sure you understand yourself.
A big part of it is knowing yourself, and it's knowing who you are, knowing your energy, and knowing what to do with you. What do you do with you?
Yeah. And so, Kayla, do you have any like insight for kind of what it was like when you realized, oh, I'm a teacher? Well,
Well
that's a new story. Okay.
well, I've always been someone that could teach others. So the teaching calling wasn't much of a surprise to me. The priestess calling was. So when I was called, it was like, "Oh, you want me to teach somebody? Okay, that's no big deal." But the priestess part of it, I was like, "You want me to do what now? Say who?" And so I was like, I had to sit with that for a while and had to be like, "Okay, you want me to you want me to have some kind of power over other people's lives?" And I had to wrestle with that. And it was like, "No, you don't have power over other people's lives. You just teach them. That's what you do. You teach them." And I was like, "Oh, I can do that. I can do that." They're like, "The rest of it," the Morgan said, "The rest of it we'll get to. The rest of it you will learn. The rest of it I will teach you." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm trusting you. Let's go.
I love
Let's
how
do it."
the Morgan is like, no, you're gonna teach, and with me, she's like, you're gonna be in service, and it's like, I don't even know what that means. And she's like,
Yeah.
it's okay, you'll figure it out, don't worry. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing that
And she
like,
was she said you're gonna be in service as well, but I'm like, I'm used to doing that kind of stuff. I'm
yeah.
used to being in service to people. I'm used to doing that kind of thing through, Christian upbringing and doing those kinds of things. But I'm like, we do that here too. What does that mean?
As somebody
What
who's
does that
also
look
escaped the
like?
church, it's like, whoa, wait, hold up. I feel like I'm in the wrong lane again. Wait, hold on. And then
Yeah, yeah.
when you realize that religious service is religious service, it doesn't really differ so much because it just means that you're out there helping people and you're, um, teaching whichever avenue of religion you happen to be a part of. But it's really exciting with those moments when you're just like, oh, I am trained for this. I've been
I do know
trained
what
just
I'm
in a
doing.
different religion. I can do
Yeah.
this. And it's basically the same thing. And it's really fun to also have those moments when you get to go, oh, cool. I get to be here and I get to help you with this. And we get to experience this together. And it's like, hey, I love nerding out on people. I don't know if people like me nerding out on them, but I love to nerd out with people and be like, I can tell you everything about this. And here's 37 book recommendations. And they're like, oh my, okay. I don't know if people like that, but I do it.
Well, I guess it depends on the
I
person, you
guess it
know?
depends on the person. Yeah. Hello, hyperfocus. So,
So,
oh, go ahead.
I have, one thing that I'm a priestess specifically of Makkah, of that aspect of the Morrigan, so that has relevance here. And Makkah gave me a gift, which was a specific type of horse for astral travel. That has relevance here. And that horse has gotten me to and from so many places, and to and from and back and forth. And when she gave me a horse, I was like, I've never ridden a horse a day in my life. I think I rode a horse one time when I was a brownie, when I was tiny, and I didn't like it. I'm like, why are you giving me a horse? And she's like, you'll need it. Okay, just go with it. Just go with it. So that horse has been a lesson in learning to just trust your deity. You just trust them when they are going to teach you something because there's a reason behind it. You trust them when they give you a lesson because then you're going to be able to take that lesson and give it to others. You're going to have to take that lesson, and I've used that stupid horse I don't know how many times to teach others about this thing or that thing. And you just have to take what you're given and know that it's the right thing for you because your deities are there for you to teach you and to guide you. And so when your deities give you a gift of some random thing that you think you're never going to need, run with it. Run with it and go down your path, go down your journey and say, okay, I'm going to make the best of it
It's so
and see how much comes out of it.
it's so funny listening to you talk about that story, which I've known that story, but it's funny because it dawns on me that you are not a horse person. I grew up on a cattle ranch with
No.
horses. And so I'm like, I know every lesson that horse is going to teach you because I know how horses work. And horses are great
Yeah.
teachers. And so we're going a little off topic here, but it that's really wild because if anybody's ever worked with horses, you know exactly how much they have to teach you and the patience and the they're not just animals that can help you get from point A to point B, but they also have such a spirit within them to teach so many different lessons of patience and understanding and bravery sovereignty, autonomy, and
Mhm.
all of these things, and they can teach so much. So the Morgan's like, here, have a horse, and I'm just like, I see the lessons like a flashing neon sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas Kayla's like,
And I've
I don't know
learned
what the hell to
so
do with
many of
this.
them. I've learned so many lessons since she gave me that horse, and I'm like, "Okay," when I got that thing, I was like, "Okay, it's a pretty animal. What do I do with it?"
And the funny thing about that too is Kayla's a priestess of Maka, and I'm a priestess of Bibed, who is another aspect of the Morgan. And a lot of people who are like, Bibed, wow, you chose to work with Bibed, and it's like, she chose to work with me. Well,
Yeah.
and you learn so much really great stuff. And again, I know we're a little off topic from gatekeeping and guarding and all of that, but it's that whole understanding of you don't really wake up and choose to do the teaching path. You don't wake up to choose which deity is like, hey, I would like you to do this. You can choose to say yes or no. But when a deity
Yeah.
calls you, it's one of those things of, why me? Why do you
Yeah.
why have you chosen me? Like, I'm sure there's somebody much more qualified for this job out there.
Right?
And but they see the qualities we don't see in ourselves. And bringing that full circle, the guardians of the path see qualities in the students and those who come on that path that most of the time the students and the people who are walking that path don't see, because they
Mhm.
have that outside perspective. They get to see you stumble and you're like, I don't know why I keep stumbling. And you don't realize that your shoe's untied. You don't realize that you've just got one minor little thing that you keep hitting the same rock over and over again. And it's like, just walk around this one. And you get to learn a new perspective from that. And it's really an exciting thing to have that happen when you're like, I can help you because I see the problem. I see what's going on here. And I can help you get to the next step. And it's not so much
Yeah.
that you do it from a point of ego, you do it from a point of understanding, because you yourself have tripped on those rocks or had those moments where you're just like, I don't get it. I don't understand why this is happening. I feel really stuck. And then something, deity, or human teacher of some kind comes along and teaches you a lesson. And you get to have that moment when you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. And it's such a fun experience when you get to watch others grow from that oh moment where they get to say, oh, I get it. And they go into the next step. And then you get to watch them mature and grow and walk up the path until they finally reach, a trailhead point, a milestone within the path. And there's no real end to the path, but it's a milestone within it. And you just get to go, that's awesome. I'm proud of you. I'm really proud of how
Yeah.
you've grown. And it's not so much of, anybody who's listening, I don't want you to think that it's like, oh, you get this ego trip. I get the same way about my kids, my dogs, anybody who has any sort of success. Random strangers that are, accomplishing things that I have not even begun to even think of accomplishing. And I get proud of them because I want to see people succeed. And I don't want anybody to be held back by anything, no matter where you are on the path. So I think it's a good idea for us as practitioners to have the conversations about gatekeeping, guarding, understanding, and the different roles that those take, and understanding that it doesn't matter if you've been practicing 5 minutes or 50 years. We all need help from time to time, and we all need understanding from time to time. And nobody should be trying to hinder that. They might just be saying,
Right.
slow down so I can help you do a better way. And it's okay
Yeah.
for you to say, I don't want that. That's fine.
Right.
You should never have to be like, oh, I have to take this advice. No, you don't. You can take any
No.
advice or leave any advice and still walk the path your way. Just others are there to help you see sometimes an easier way to keep you from stumbling, falling, getting hurt, or any of those other things, which can
Yeah.
sometimes discourage you from moving forward because it stings too much to do it. So that's why they're there. And if anybody's like, no, I know the best way and this is the way that you should be doing it, that's a gatekeeper. Walk away. Tell them to, you know, go off and do something else. And then everybody else that's like, this is the path. I have a map. Would you like me to help you? That's somebody who wants to help you. They never want you to do it
Yeah.
their way. They want you to do it your way. They just want to help you along the way. So, any
Yeah.
final thoughts on this, Kayla, before we wrap up? Because we're about out of time. I didn't even realize until I looked at the clock and I'm like, holy crap, I thought we had been here for like 10 minutes. Nope, we've been here for almost an hour. So,
um,
any final thoughts?
my final thought is a wonderful sentence. The sacred stays alive when it's handled with care, not clutched in fear.
Oh, that's a
That's my
beautiful
final thought.
statement. I love that. Oh, okay. So now that I'm getting all gushy over here about, some little sentence that Kayla just threw out there, this episode is airing on January the 28th. If you are listening to it then, thank you. If you're listening to it like a year later, also thank you. But for those who are listening to it right now, I am really glad that you're here. And if you haven't already joined our Discord, this is that moment where, I do the shameless plug stuff. I promote the books, I
Shameless
do the things.
plug.
But come join us in Discord. We have a lot of really great events coming up for the end of January and February. On January 29th, which will be the day after this podcast airs, will be our Echo of Embers devotional service, which is basically a moment where you can come and just have some stillness and get some messaging that we have prepared for you, and take whatever messaging applies and leave the rest. And it's just a moment to be in stillness with the divine. Then on February 1st, we have our Supernatural. Actually, just every Sunday, we have Supernatural Sunday, where we are currently making our ways through the seasons of the show Supernatural. Come watch with us. We would love to have you. For the first Weird Wednesday, which is February 4th, we're doing a deity communication. So we're going to talk to a few deities and do some deity channeling. On February 11th, we are doing daily practices and ideas. We're going to do a community skill exchange and talk about our daily practices within our own personal practices, what really sticks, and exchange some of those to see how people like them. If it works better for you, if it doesn't, that's okay. It's always fun to try out a new type of practice. And then on February 12th, if you are following the path or just have general witchcraft questions, we have a night where you can come and ask me and Kayla questions. And I'm going to go through the whole month, but you'll get to hear all these throughout the month as well. But, just for those who are like, oh, let me write all this down. February 18th, which is another Wednesday, we're doing Cut the Thread ritual, and it's what are you feeding that no longer feeds you? So it's a ritual that we'll be doing. And then we're going to have, finally, on February the 26th, another Echo of Embers night. So come join us for all the great stuff in February. Join the Discord. We would love to have you. We'd love for you to walk the tempering path alongside of us, and we will be there to help you every step of the way. If you have questions or thoughts about this episode, leave us a comment. We would love to hear that, and we're so thankful for each and every listener. So make sure you are taking care of yourselves, be kind to each other, and take care of yourselves really in this crazy world. It's a little nuts. And we will see you all next time for another episode. So bye-bye, everyone.